All right, good morning. It's Friday, and we made it to the weekend. Those of you that are in that grind, and so it's gonna be a good day. Make it a good day. Choose to have that good day, and man, let's rock the weekend. Right? Life is short. Just a reminder. Weekends they fly by, don't they? And it's my middle son. I guess that's how I would describe it. It's his birthday today. He's 37. He was one of our first unplanned kiddos that showed up, and he's 13 months younger than his sister. And but man, what a joy! And so life is good. Celebrate it. Hey, we're gonna jump into scripture today. I want to get to it. A lot of thoughts. And I want us to just be clear on a few things. And this is an easy passage if you just want to look at it from a practical standpoint. And it's easy to do, and we make this switch and kind of gloss over the subject of slavery. And so today I just want to kind of, we're going to talk about that. We're going to the text. I just want us to kind of get a flyover of what's going on. So transforming the world from our station in life is really kind of what Paul is after here. Everything that Paul writes, and I shouldn't say Paul like it's Paul, it's the Spirit of Christ moving through the mind and heart and emotions of Paul causes him to write what he wrote. So it's better to say the Lord is trying to teach us here that we don't sometimes get to choose our station in life. We don't get to choose whether we're a man or a woman, contrary to what the world says. We don't get to choose what kind of economics or gender economic or racial or any of those things makeup of our home. We just entered into it as God decided. We sometimes don't get to choose our station in life in the sense of whether we have the education or the training to move into other areas. And while I believe in the American ingenuity and all of that kind of thing, and we can be anybody we want to be, there are limitations based on environment. And so Paul is trying to let us know that, listen, no matter where you find yourselves, you can change the world from right here. And I think that's important. You can change the world. You don't need anything extra to make that happen. I don't know why I think about it often, but there was I guess small town America, big news was interviewing some guy from a small town and say, well, what's so important about your city? He said, I reckon you can get anywhere you want to in the world from this very spot right here, right? And so he took what was kind of an insignificant thing in the world of others, and he thought, no, man, hey, this is like the gateway to everything. And I think we have to see our station in life in that same sense, right? It's the gateway to everything. And so why would I diminish that? Why would we not maximize on that? And so Christ, through Paul, has given us principles about where that change most effectively comes from. And he's centering in on the home. And it should be no surprise. The first institution God established wasn't a government. It wasn't even a religious center. It wasn't that. It was one man, one woman, one flesh till death, and that they should be busy having babies and then raising those babies to honor God. That's the home. And so he comes back to that time and time again throughout the scriptures. And Christ's work is redemption and transformation. He's always about doing that. So when someone comes to Christ, it is that person is redeemed and then transformed. That's the process. That's what we're in right now, right? We are in that process of sanctification. But it should not just transform me. I am a father in this home. Therefore, it should transform my home and redeem my home. The effect of my life should bring Christ to bear in my kids' life and in my wife's life. And if they're not believers, my goal is to see them redeemed. And my goal is to see them transformed. If you happen to be a wife or a mother, that's your station in life from that vantage point. Then your redemption and transformation is to affect your husband and your kids. If you are a child and you live in a home where there aren't the parents that are believers or not, your way to transform life is by being obedient to your parents. And if you're a dad, your goal is to see to it that your home is at the core of it is the training and disciplines and instruction of the Lord. That you create godly disciplines in your family, and that you create a wealth of knowledge about who God is and what He's done for us and who we are in Christ. These are central. And that's the concentric circle that we know of as family. And the circle will get larger as your family grows, but they're not outside that circle. I have the same responsibilities to my grandkids that I do to my kids. And I have the same responsibility to my in-laws, my daughter-in-laws, and my son-in-law as I do my kids. That's my station in life. But outside of that family circle, then the next one is what we have normally taken the scriptures here that we're going to look at and make it about the marketplace. But it's really not about that. It's about those who attend to your family. That is masters and that is slaves. Those who are in your household. Now, we don't have slaves today, but in some sense we do from a loose perspective. We have those who maybe do our repairs. We have those who are go-to for our automobiles and all of those things. And so there is that. It's easy just to translate it to the marketplace and go, well, you have a boss and then you work for somebody and then you maybe boss somebody. And that's the practical emphasis. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's biblical and true. I just don't want us to kind of gloss over that and just assume. I mean, it says slaves. At the face, isn't that an affront to those of us who believe in free people and self ability to do what we want to do, that there shouldn't be restrictions, self-government, so to speak? You would think it is, but it's a part of life and history. It's easy for pastors to say, well, these slaves and masters, they were indentured slaves. That is, that they owed a debt they couldn't pay, and so they're just paying it off. So in a sense, they really are just like employees. But it's not always like that, specifically not in some of the cultures where Colossians resides. Those were slaves. They were brought up in slave households, and you had generational slaves, and they were yours because of their lot in life. They didn't get to choose it, and you own them. Now, what should we do about that? We don't have time to get into that today. I just want us to understand that let's just don't gloss over that fact. And then let's just jump into some of these things. But listen, before we do, the world feels insane right now, doesn't it? I mean, it's crazy. Governing bodies around the world, from our neighbor Canada to Australia, New Zealand, and so many others, China, Russia, even Ukraine, they're evil governing authorities, and they are power hungry. We live in that kind of world. Now, that's not new, but we live in that, and it's evil, and they seem to be conspiring more and more, and we need to understand that our world isn't getting better. This isn't an improvement, what's going on. The middle class is about gone, so in a sense, we do have slaves and masters in that sense. You just have the really wealthy and the really poor in that sense, and the middle class, though a lot of us are middle class, is shrinking. And we're finding ourselves, we're either going to be moving up or we're going to be moving down. But the middle is pretty much gone. Culturally, we're being driven by the outliers, by the radicals, the crazy people. That's who's driving everything in our world. You ask the normal citizen what they believe, they don't believe anything about the extremes on either side of whatever's going on in this world. But culture is being driven by the radicals. So how do we fix that? Well, this is why Paul is talking about what he's talking about. Reality's being blurred, isn't it? I mean, I listened to What is a Woman last night, that an author did this interview trying to find that, and he went everywhere. It was hard to watch. The stupidity, the absolute foolish, illogic, imbecilic aspects of what people were saying is absolutely mind-blowing. But our world is moving that way. The realities are being blurred. Make no mistake, you can think what you want to about the metaverse, and you can try and use it to your advantage and all of those things. I'm telling you, the whole goal of that is to blur reality. Because if reality became reality, then there is a heaven, and there is a hell, and there is a God, and you have to decide what you're going to do with that. And so let's blur the lines there. And so that's what's going on. These aren't new things. They're just merely new to our time. The age-old principles in this book that we're looking at is the key to transformation. That's why I find this very hope-filled, right? The violence in this life can be traced back. Everything we see in this world right now that's crazy. Now, and you can try and shout me down if you want to, and that's fine. It is because of a breakdown in the home. Everything we're looking at. You go back and you look at these shooters and everything else. You look at the one that happened in Texas, and you'll find that individual who went and shot up that school, mentally disturbed. And if you chase it far enough, you're going to realize he had some dad issues. The fact that you would choose to shoot your grandmother says that there's some issues going on inside the home, right? This is what's going on. And you can trace that in almost every arena. People who have father issues, and listen, as a pastor and as a counselor, I see this on an abundant basis all the time. That there's always a dysfunction in the home, an absent dad, or a negligent mom, or abusive things sexually or emotionally or any other way. Those things are what create the people and the problems that people have. The reason why we are inundated with anxiety medicines and everything else isn't because somehow this world is more complicated and complex. It's because most had some dysfunction in the home and they weren't taught how to think and how to live. And I realize I'm speaking in generality. So if you're doing those things, taking those things, I'm not against any of the medicines either. I'm just simply saying this is where it's going on. That's where the dysfunction is. You create divorced situations and you're wreaking havoc on the souls of your kids. You just are. And I realize some of you couldn't escape that, and I understand that, so I'm not attaching blame anywhere. I'm simply telling you, two-parent households, it creates the most balanced life that you can find. And I realize you can make arguments for why it's better to be single than that. And again, my goal is not to argue with you. My goal is just to look at the raw statistics and tell you what's going on. Our mental health issues today are like we've never seen before, and you can trace it back to the home. Almost everyone. Just go do your own study. Now, the home then, because that's where it is, then the home is the catalyst for change, and evil knows it. That's why it seeks to destroy the family. It's constantly doing that. That's why right now you're seeing this gender dysphoria junk going on, because they want to blur the lines. They don't want a husband and a wife, and they don't want normal children. They want dysfunction, and they don't even believe that your kids belong to you. And this is why they want your kids. That's why early learning is so important. It's not about getting kids in college. It's about manipulating your kids. Now, you can call me fanatical if you want to. I'm just telling you that's what it is. And we buy into it because we think, oh, wow, that means we can get to work earlier. So instead of trying to figure out how to stay at home and care for our kids, let them do it. And we'll just go make money. And so we've made money our idol. I realize I sound harsh today. I just think it's important that sometimes we kind of like, hey, can you hear me? Can we look at these things and understand what's going on? But that's what's going on. So where do we start? How do we fix society? We start by fixing ourselves, right? So if you're a wife and you've got, you're wearing compassion and kindness and humility and gentleness and patience and forbearance and forgiving, like we've been talking about now for about a week and a half, if you get those in your life, if you submit your own life to Christ, and therefore when you see your husband, it has nothing to do with what kind of man he is. You know that you're not going to let that man affect who you are. And who you are is going to be one who is submissive. And you're going to line up underneath him, believer or not. The only reason you would depart from that is because he asks you to do something that's disobedient to God himself. And so you line up in that way. And to a husband, you treat your wife in a loving, sacrificial manner. It doesn't matter whether she wasn't raised to be a good mom, good wife or not. You serve your wife. You regard her as more important than yourself. That's where transformation comes. When kids are brought up in a place where a wife is submissive and desiring to be obedient to her husband, and that husband is loving and sacrificing and cherishing his wife, you have created a safe, stable environment where good, godly kids can grow up and flourish, as opposed to the ones who have mental issues and everything else. And then, so if you're a child You simply have one goal, and that is just obey your parents, because the Lord will take care of you when you do that. Be obedient to your parents, because it's what pleases the Lord, and He's the one who looks out for you. And if you're a dad, get off your proverbial backside and begin to teach your kids. Don't provoke them. Don't minimalize your time with them. Spend time with them. That's where quality things come from, in the quantity of time. And you teach your kids spiritual disciplines, and you teach your kids the truth of Scripture. And so that's what we looked at. Now, the next circle, which we're looking at today, and I've given myself about 5 minutes to talk about it. We may meet it again Monday. Is this area of the marketplace. But in their world, it was slaves and masters. Real deal. Real deal slaves, real deal masters. Why didn't God tell them to quit? Why didn't Jesus destroy that whole thing? Because just in the same reason why in his conversation with the rulers, and they asked him if he was a king. And he said, yeah, I'm a king, but not of this world. Because if I were, it'd be hell for you to pay. And that's the same thing here. This isn't our home. And so he's just calling us, and we forget that. But this, and I know this, again, this sounds kind of harsh and cruel. I think Paul's going to write a letter, and we're going to look at it, about a slave that had run away, and death was going to be his result. And he wrote the master and said, hey, listen, man, the guy's come to Christ, and you owe me. You take care of that slave. Right? So freedom is what God's called us to. In fact, it was the church that has the catalyst when in 1834, I think, a man named Wilberforce, a believer in Christ, is what helped eradicate slavery, at least on the books, and then as it fleshes itself out in England. And it was in 1863. We fought a war to create freedom for slavery. And it was a righteous battle in some of those things. That's what was, some of it had to do just with political purposes, but other had to do what was right and what was wrong. That's why our framers of our Constitution wrote in there the equality, that all men are created equal. Whether they still had rules in place or not is a difficulty, but they all knew that slavery's time was over. And so enough of that. Let's just kind of jump into the scriptures and just read it today. He says this: slaves, obey your earthly masters in everything, and do it not only when their eyes are on you and to curry their favor, but with sincerity of heart and reverence for the Lord. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving. Anyone who does wrong will be repaid for their wrongs, and there is no favoritism. Hear what God's saying there? Hey, listen, if you work for somebody, and that's your boss, and you've chosen to willingly work in that environment, then you seek to be as obedient as you can to them in everything, in time, in tasks, in mindset. You go all in, because you're not working for that master. That's the transformation. How do we transform our home? By being godly. How do we transform our marketplace? By being godly. What does it look like? It means that we have compassion, and we have kindness, and we have humility, and we have gentleness and patience and forbearance, and we forgive. That's how we bring that then into this environment. So if you're an employee, this is how you transform your company. And I'm seeing it happen right now in our own company, and I'm excited about what's taking place. But it's not by eye service. Don't do it simply because the boss is looking. Doesn't matter whether they're looking or not. You're not doing it. You're doing it for the Lord, whose eyes are always on us. And so let's be careful about that. And you're going to do it from the heart, not grudgingly, like, okay, well, I will because I have to, because I want a paycheck. No, do it because you love the Lord and you love that boss, believer or not. And so you're going to, from the heart, do what's right. He doesn't dictate. The boss doesn't set the temperature of the company. You do. You're the thermostat. You set it by being godly. It's about respect and trust in the Lord. I'm going to trust the Lord's going to take care of me through my unsaved boss, through my evil boss, through my godly boss. Doesn't matter. I'm looking beyond him anyway. I'm looking to Christ. Everything I do to him is because of my love for Christ. That's how you transform things. And the reward comes from him. Listen, the Lord's going to reward you. You be making minimum wage somewhere. That doesn't mean anything. It's the Lord who creates wealth and gives you that ability, and it's the Lord who determines those things. Right? He does. And so, Lord, in a nanosecond, he can transform everything. His reward comes from him. Doing right always brings a reward. When you do wrong, and this is what he says, you start not being a good employee, you expect that the Lord's going to reward you for that too, and it won't be healthy. That's what he says. Anyone who does wrong will be repaid for their wrongs. For there is no favoritism. God's not showing favoritism to you as a believer. You do wrong, you're going to catch it from the Lord. And so this is powerful truth. And then we're going to just read the last one. I know I'm a little over here, but let me just jump to chapter 4. Verse 1, Masters, provide your slaves what is right and fair, because you know that you also have a master in heaven, right? So if you're a boss, what are you going to do? You're going to do what's right and fair. Quit trying to skimp and quit trying to pay the minimum amount that you can pay and quit trying to skirt holidays and all of those things. Do what's right for them, and the Lord will repay you. Apply the golden rule. This is what I do every day of my life as a boss. I seek to do to others as I want done to me. And I seek to go the extra mile for those that are under my care. Those are the two values that we have driven into our company. And they matter. Why? Because God is watching us. Know that your master in heaven is watching you. You got a boss too. All right, I've kept you too long. Lord bless you. Have a good weekend. And I can't wait to see you Monday morning.